2 years later with my master's in speech and language pathology, and I've been doing early intervention with DDI for about 6.5 years now. And then I have one daughter who's 17 months. So we're just going to talk a little bit about today about some early communication, and then also just kind of touching on the sign language, how to introduce it, what are some good ones to start with. Obviously it's just us. Please stop me if you have any questions, comments, anything like that. Please just stop me and we can talk about any and all things. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is some of the pre-language skills that we work on, some of the early nonverbal things that we kind of focus on before we expect a kiddo to be talking. And so if you guys want to pull out this handout, the what needs to happen before my child will talk, that's the first one that we're going to talk about here. So pre-language and nonverbal skills start to develop from a very early age, which will help support language learning. Starting as early as infancy, babies are always learning. This includes things such as looking and listening, copying, smiling, and anticipation. Alright, so on this handout, we're going to talk about, like I said, some of the nonverbal things that we start with. And usually when you start in our program, this is what your therapist is looking for, and this is what your therapist is usually starting to work on if kiddos are not using verbal language quite yet. And all of this we do through play. So we hear that a lot, oh, you're just playing with my kid. What are you doing? And so usually we're working on one of these things, but of course it does look like play. So the first one that we tend to work on is attention. So your child needs to be able to attend to a task, item, or person for a sufficient amount of time. If their attention is fleeting in nature, then he may not stay long enough with the task to learn about it and thus not have the words to describe it. And I always tell parents it's very typical at this age for kids to have pretty short attention. A lot of times they've just learned to walk, so they're really excited to move and go and do. So kids do usually have shorter attention. And so one way that we can work on that is by just trying to pull out one toy at a time. A lot of times kids have access to all of their toys, and so maybe choosing a different room, grab a couple of toys and choose a different room to play in just so that they can't escape and be like, I'm tired of this toy and go get another one. Tired of that one, we go get another one. And another way you can encourage longer attention is to help them clean up. So if you can tell they're done, they're getting frustrated, they don't want to do it, using a sign like all done, cueing them with all done, and then encourage them to clean up. So have a bin or a basket or something like that, because it just kind of allows us to talk a little bit more about the object. So if you're doing blocks and you're working on the word block with him, it just kind of gives you that much more time to say block. If you're putting them in every time, block in, or by block, just anything we can do to repeat that vocabulary while they're attending to the same thing that we are. Eye contact is one that we look at a lot. Of course, eye contact is necessary for that back and forth communication. So with the joint attention as well, that's one way to tell if we're kind of on the same page. And he's really excited to show you guys things. I can see that. So he does interact really well. He's excited to find something, and he doesn't want to just play with it by himself. He wants you to be excited about it too. So it looks like he really has that skill already. Object permanence is an important skill for kids to learn. Children need to know an object is still there even when it's out of sight before they can talk about it confidently. Object permanence is shown by children lifting a blanket to find a hidden toy, looking for something that's just fallen to the ground, searching for something that's in another room, etc. Sometimes I work on this one by, or kind of make it interesting. I'll have like cups or something like that where we'll hide a toy under and then do something silly like call it, like if we hide a ball under a cup, then we can, hey ball, where are you? Ball, hi ball. Again, just different ways to kind of work on that word over and over and over, and also working on that object permanence. Means end. So this skill allows children to use their bodies or other objects to get what they want. And that's usually where it starts. It's physical first. They're going to go get what they want before they're going to ask you for what they want. So children need to realize, if I do this, then that will happen. Means end is present in everyday communication, as the speaker knows that if he says something, there will be an end result, such as a response from a listener, an action that happens, him getting what he's asked for, etc. And this one is kind of one of the main reasons that kids learn how to talk, because they realize, oh, cool, all I had to do was say cookie. Mom gave me a cookie, and that was pretty awesome. And it's the same reason they may, perform repeatedly. If they know if they say something or they do something, they're going to get a laugh or they're going to get applause, then they're probably going to do it again. So cause and effect, kind of the same as the means end. It's the very beginning of how children learn they can kind of control and manipulate their environment a little bit. So we start with this one a lot of times during play, and it's kind of those basic toys: push a button, it makes a noise, push a button, something pops out. Kind of starting there and then building that skill up into communication as well. This is another one where we work on a lot during therapy, the imitation. Kids almost always will go through that phase of kind of parodying and copying what you say before they're going to say a word on their own. And again, most of the kids that we work with, when we start, they're not verbal yet, or they just have very basic verbal skills. And so usually I start with imitation of actions. Kids usually respond better to that. It's usually less pressure. So if we're playing and we're building blocks and we're, saying up, trying to kind of do that imitating, will he imitate putting a block on top, or doing something silly like putting it on your head and sneezing it off. So usually we start with the imitation of actions first, because usually that's where the kids that we work with are at in their skill level. And then moving to things where we're pairing maybe a sound with that action. So instead of just the action, now we're going to say boom, 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 or up, up, up. Working on imitating just simple sounds like that, or just environmental sounds like animal sounds, or making a block go and saying choo, 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 imitation of just some of those basic sounds. And the imitation skills usually happen in a progression, so kids learn the gross motor first, so that's things like the crawling, the walking, those bigger motor actions, and then fine motor, so able to copy, like I said, like building a block or copying, putting a puzzle piece in, things like that. And then oral motor actions, we'll start copying that, so things like sticking out their tongue, moving their tongue around, blowing a kiss, different things like that. And then usually the last thing to develop is the words. And that's one of the reasons that signs are so great, because a lot of times kids are ready to communicate, they have the ability to communicate, but maybe not the oral motor skills to do it. And so signs are a great way to kind of work on that and give them an outlet to communicate. Turn taking, we kind of already started talking about that. So once a child understands imitation, turn taking will usually closely follow. It's very important, as it's what communication is all about. I say something, then you say something, then I say something, etc. And this skill usually follows the same progression as imitation. So starting in play, turn taking back and forth, roll the ball to you, you roll the ball to me. I put a block on, you put a block on. I put a puzzle piece in, you put a puzzle piece in. And then understanding words and directives. So children need to understand words before they begin using them. Remember to speak to your child on the level that they themselves would speak. So using only 1 to 3 words when giving directions, instead of, a big, long, more complicated type of direction. So, just their example is go get your shoes on so we can go. Instead, just try and get shoes or shoes on, just kind of really basic, or even just shoes, wear shoes, and having him work on finding shoes. So you'll know they understand when they begin following directions and or looking at items that you name. If you can say, where's puppy, where's ball, where's baby, if they start to kind of look for those things, point to those things, go retrieve those things. And like I said, it's important to remember that we're doing all of this through play. That's really the optimal way to help kids learn. That's what they love to do. That is their work. And I'm sure Terry will give you more information on this as she goes through. And you may already see her doing some of these strategies as well. You guys have any questions on any of that, or comments, or okay? Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about introducing sign language. Shape! So why do we introduce sign language? Why do we think sign language is a good idea? So for one thing, it can help to decrease the frustration. So is your child whining or screaming when he wants something? For children unable to communicate their needs verbally, sign language can help to reduce their frustration. Sorry, I don't think you guys have this on a handout if you're looking for it. It can help to build their vocabulary, so rather than just pointing to something, signs teach children how to use symbols for objects, actions, etc. Can help increase a child's social skills. Successful communication with family members and people in a child's environment creates a sense of belonging. It also allows him or her to manipulate language for various social functions, including sharing information, commenting, requesting, and turn-taking. It can help to increase early literacy skills. So research supports that learning signs before learning to talk may encourage literacy and reading skills later in life. It can help to increase their motor development. So by creating signs, the child practices coordination of hand and body movements, which not only improve overall motor skills, but ultimately help stimulate speech production. And it can also help to increase the length of the utterances that they may be using. So signs help a child transition to using longer phrases and sentences. So for example, instead of using one word to request, like cookie, you may ask the child to imitate 2 or more words through signs, like cookie, please. And so one thing that I see that my kiddos might do is to do a sign and something verbal. So they might be signing, this is a sign for more. They might be signing more and saying ball or saying cookie or saying one of those things. So that's kind of cool too. Sometimes we'll see them verbalize and use their signs. And I find that these really stick with kiddos when I start with signs. I definitely believe in the decreasing frustration. I see that a lot. I see kids get really excited when they realize that they're communicating and they're getting their needs met through their communication. And I also will see them hang on to, even after they become verbal, when they start breaking down, if they're, extra hungry, extra tired, having some kind of meltdown. A lot of times I'll see them even revert back to these signs when they can't come up with the word. So when the emotions are so strong that they can't verbalize, I want more, or I want to go to bed, or I want to play, sometimes we'll see them kind of go back to these signs because they are so ingrained. All right, so we have 3 stages of signing. So the first one is imitation. So the first step is that your babies will start copying your signs. And when using signs gestures regularly, babies will copy you and make the signs in return. And these start even without necessarily being sign language. These start with the things like blowing kisses, waving bye-bye. Well, he copied what you're doing when you wave bye-bye. At this stage, babies don't really understand what the signs mean. They're mostly just learning how to perform the signs, how to kind of get a reaction out of us. So the next stage is association, and in this stage, babies start to associate the sign with some concept. They may start making the right sign when something triggers the association. So maybe when they see the car, or maybe when they see their shoes, they might do that. Oh, we're going bye-bye, we're going bye-bye. Babies make the connection between the word and the concept. So for example, the child might sign dog whenever a dog or another furry animal is nearby. And the last stage of signing is the communication. So in this stage, babies start to use the signs to communicate a message to you. The child's learned that they can use the signs to communicate wants, needs, and feelings to you. All right, so some simple steps to baby sign language. You want to start simple. So usually we start, sometimes parents get nervous when I start talking about sign language because they think it's going to be some big, massive learning process, and I'm like, I know like 6, so no, we're not gonna teach them that instead of the English language by any means. So some of the basic ones that I usually start with are the ones that they're going to get gratification with quickly. So when I play with kiddos, usually how I'll introduce a puzzle, blocks, anything like that, I try to have them in something like a clear Ziploc or a clear Tupperware, something like that, so they can see what I have, but they don't just have access to grab it all and play with it. So I start with something like that so that we can do more. You want more? Okay, here's more, and do just one at a time so that each time we're teaching them that. This is great that there's so many of you, because one suggestion that I give to families is to have like one person sit maybe behind the kiddo so that they can actually take the hands and help him with like hand over hand. So, you guys kind of be behind him so that he's seeing his hands do this. Because sometimes when I start working on a sign, if I'm doing more, they'll start to reach for my hands and put my hands together because they're seeing me do this and they're being rewarded for it. So that's one way that I will suggest to families to work on, is have somebody behind kind of showing him like, oh, my hands are doing that and I'm getting something, So that's one that I start with. So starting just very simple, things like eat, more, we do help a lot. Always talk as you sign, and that's something I tell parents too when they're worried, okay, if he signs, is he ever going to talk? Well, yeah. Usually we're not just silent when we're playing and we're doing the signs. We're not just going to say, if we want him to eat, we're going to say, Elijah, do you want to eat? Eat, time to eat. We're always going to be vocalizing when we're making the sign, so it's kind of helps him in that way too. So make eye contact and play face to face. I'm pretty much always on the floor when I'm working with kiddos. It just kind of lets me know I'm on their level, I'm ready to play, I'm paying attention to them, and that's great for sign language too. Be patient. It may take some time. This is a brand new thing for him, brand new thing for most of the kids that we work with. So it may take some time before they catch on, and they may, you know, like I said, they may just copy you but not quite understand what it means. So just keep with it. Look for him using the signs. You know, you may see him kind of randomly playing with it. Try to give it some meaning. If you see him playing by himself or he's just watching TV and you see him doing this, try to bring something into it to help him learn that association, because it may just be he's kind of playing with his hands. He knew we did that before. So bring something over and really validate. Oh, okay, let's play. Here's one block. I saw you say more. Let's find some more. Or if he's watching TV, you know, pause the show. I saw you say more. You want to watch more of your show? Okay, let's watch some more and play the TV. So trying to kind of give some meaning. If you see him happen to make this sign, jump in there as quick as you can to try to help him learn that that sign has meaning. Go ahead and add signs, even if, you know, he's not using one quite yet. It's definitely okay to introduce another one. Like I said, just those basic ones, and I tell parents, choose ones that are the most meaningful to him. So if his favorite thing is food, do eat, do cookie, do juice, you know, drink, anything like that. So find milk. Is that what you said? Okay, yeah. So this one's milk. That's a good one to start with. If that's what motivates him, go for it. Yeah, whatever he likes. If he likes shows, do that one. If he likes to go, do that one. So yeah, like I said, just adding signs wherever you can, wherever you feel like they're going to be appropriate and meaningful and motivating to him. So sign often and repeat. Definitely routine and repeating are something that I stress a lot in therapy. Kids thrive on repetitive games, on repetitive routines. They like to know what's coming. They like to do the same things over and over, to the point that you feel like a crazy person because you've stacked and crashed blocks 80 times in the past 20 minutes. But it's so good for their developing brains to do those things over and over and over, and for them to hear us say those words and see those signs over and over and over. So we've already talked a little bit about the benefits of signing. I don't think I made a copy of this actual PowerPoint for you guys, so I'll do that before you leave, because we do have a little page on here just with some other resources. We've got videos, books, some websites you can check out, and then even some apps. And one of the ones I use the most, if a family's like, hey, what's the sign for this? And I don't know it, I'll whip my phone out, let's YouTube it, because there's a YouTube video for just about every sign you can think of, and I literally just type in sign language for whatever word that family's asking about, and it'll pull up, you know, a 5-second video of someone doing that sign. So that's always one that I suggest if you think, you know, if you're in the moment, you're like, this would be a good one, because he always gets frustrated when he wants this and he can't tell us. So this is a sign that would be really good for him. Let's work on this one and find this one. All right, just a few things to remember. We want the signs and the words to be familiar. So again, using them over and over and over. We want them to be motivating. So choose things that he likes, not necessarily things that maybe we feel like are things that he should know. You know, what's going to motivate him? What's he going to be interested in? Try to put them into your functional settings in real life. So when your therapists are there, sometimes we come during a meal if that's where you guys are struggling. Sometimes we come during some of the other routines, but usually when we're there, we're playing. But the strategies that we give you, certainly you can use during other times, like a mealtime. You know, like I said, when I'm playing and I'm encouraging them to ask for more with the blocks, that's definitely something. If he's in his high chair, give him, you know, 2 bites at a time and encourage him to have to ask for more for the next one. Or with milk, give him, you know, 1 drink's worth, and then, oh, we're out, you need milk, and it may really make him mad in the beginning, but that's one way to work on it. Repetition, we talked about that. Rewards and positive reinforcement. Usually I'll tell families, shoot for 2 to 3 repetitions. So if you're playing and you're trying to get him to say or sign more, I keep going back to that one just because it's one of the ones we use most often. I'll tell him kind of shoot for 3 times. You know, model it 3 times. You want more? Kind of wait, pause, give him a second, let him know, you know, give him some of these cues, like it's your turn, we want you to do it. Try it again. You want more? Kind of let him know it's his turn. And then on the 3rd one, okay, you want more. Here's more. And on the 3rd repetition, usually if kiddos haven't imitated it yet, odds are they're not going to in that particular moment. But hey, you just did it 3 times. If you do that 10 times a day, he's heard it and seen it 30 times that day. So it's going to come eventually. And then consistency, repetition, those really are the main things. Any questions on the signs or particular ones that you'd like to know about? Okay. So this is kind of outside of the sign language. I mean, definitely you can incorporate sign language in this as well, but I just wanted to share this one with you because I feel like this really nicely summarizes so many of the strategies that we use in therapy. So you guys do have this handout. It's the child care communication posters. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about a few of these strategies just briefly. Again, I'm sure Terry is going to talk to you guys about a lot of these as you go through therapy with her, but this can just kind of start to introduce you to some of these. So the first one, getting on the child's level, we talked about this one already. The floor is great. Be wherever he is. If he's up on the couch and likes to play on the couch, be there. If he wants to be down on the floor, be there. Just letting him know, okay, we're here, we're on the same level, we're ready to play, we're ready to talk. It just makes them feel important. It makes them feel validated when you're down there and ready. Responding every time. So this one's important, even if he, is not necessarily using a real word yet, to respond to his vocalizations or gestures. It's our job right now to provide those words that he's not using yet. So if he's pointing or he's excited to come show you something, give him that word. Wow, you got a block. That's such a cool block. And just really emphasizing those keywords. And so, of course, we want them to start to understand that they have some control over their environment because this is the basis of the communication. So anytime he initiates something with you guys, any kind of, communication or contact in any way, just make sure you're validating that every time. Even, like if he comes in the kitchen and is pointing, oh, I see you want milk. Okay, let's get milk. Just respond. Anything he's doing, give something back to him. So mirroring, this is the next strategy that we use. So if a child babbles any type of sound, usually I'll just copy that sound right back. If he's playing this puzzle and he's going ba ba ba, I'm going to say ba ba ba, because I want to start that kind of turn taking. I just want to, usually when I do that, kids are like, what are you doing? Because that's not what they're used to hearing. They're used to hearing more kind of adult-like speech. So just kind of trying to, again, get on their level. More likely that he'll continue the interaction and then kind of moving from that to practicing sounds that are more, our language. If he's starting to kind of do that back and forth, then you can kind of change it to la la la, see if he'll copy something different. If you guys have done that ba 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 sound back and forth, just change it just a little bit. So the next two, the parallel talk and the self-talk. So parallel talk is basically just a running commentary of what he's doing. And I usually tell parents with this one, because you're talking about what he's doing, I would try to keep it to maybe 1 to 2 words. Like what he's doing right now, I literally would just say, on, or if it's a tall one and he's slaying it on, wee, or piece on, or shape. I mean, anything that's associated with that. There's obviously no rules to which words to use, but just keeping it very simple so that if he wanted to copy what you were saying, he could. Because if we're saying, wow, look at all those shapes that you did, you're putting all of those shapes on and you're matching the colors and you're doing such a good job. If he wanted to say something, what would he say? Like maybe copy that last word that we said, maybe. So when you're kind of down on the floor doing that play, just really try to stick to 1 word or 2 at the most, keeping those keywords really emphasized. And then the self-talk is basically the same thing, but it's more kind of describing what you're doing, so narrating what you're doing when he's around. And with this one, I think it's okay to use more of an adult form, because in this case, we're not necessarily encouraging him to say the word. So, if you're cooking and he's in the kitchen with you, I think it's okay to use more of the adult phrases like, okay, I'm going to turn the water on. Ooh, that water's hot. Different stuff like that, so that he's still getting that input. But like I said, at this one, maybe we're not encouraging him to say the word. We're just kind of helping him with the language. So reflecting. This is a great way to promote language in verbal kiddos. So once he does start talking, if he doesn't say the words perfectly, that's totally okay. We definitely expect that the speech is not going to come out the perfect the first time. So, if he says something like goggy for doggy or something like that, we don't want to say, what's a goggy? It's not a goggy. We just want to, yeah, doggy. I saw that doggy. So really reflecting on what he says and just modeling it back correctly, and being really excited about what he said and that he used his words. We don't ever want to say, oh no, you said that wrong, or I have a kiddo that loves the N sound, and so for the moon, he'll say noon, noon. And I don't ever, I'll tell mom, don't say that's not noon, that's moon. Because at this age, they don't hear the difference yet. They don't understand the concept of sounds changing a word. So if we say, no, that's not noon, he's going, okay, I thought I just learned that word and I thought I was doing it right. We're just going to confuse them. So validate it. Yep, moon. I see the moon. Expanding is another strategy I use a lot. So this can add more information. So if he's starting to, put words like in, out, on, kind of some of those concepts, then we can start expanding on that. Yeah, peace on, peace out, different things like that, just where we're literally expanding on the words that he's using, just to continue increasing his language. This one, I always tell parents, use fewer questions, and I say, do as I say, not as I do, because I am one of the worst about asking lots of questions. So certainly it's better just to make statements when you're interacting with a kiddo, because if we're constantly asking questions, the only words they really need to know are yes and no. If we're constantly like, oh, do you have a shape? Did you put it on? Is your shape red? I think that kids eventually just start to tune us out. They know we're asking a question and it's getting real annoying, and I'm just going to start tuning you out because I hear that intonation in your voice and I don't want to answer all your questions. And again, then all he has to say is, he just has to respond with a head nod or a head shake or a yes or a no, So better just to make statements. On, blue, just different things like that where we're just using statements and single words. And another reason that I like to do that is because then it's great to practice for imitation. He can practice the imitation of that word rather than practicing answering a question. Taking turns, we really already talked about that one. The main goal in the turn taking with the language is just to keep the interaction going as long as we can. So as long as he's got interest, just kind of trying to keep those verbalizations going as long as we can. And even if he's not responding verbally, just keeping the interaction going as long as you can so that you can model those words for him. Because again, the longer we stick with something, the more he's going to be able to hear the words about it and learn the words about it. So this last one's kind of fun. Talks about adding something different. And this one is where we kind of change those routines that kiddos are usually very familiar with. So, when you're dressing him, slip a sock on his hand and see what he does, because it kind of gives him the chance to take the lead of that conversation and be like, huh? What are we doing? And it just kind of opens up that door. Oh, you're right, not hands, feet. We need sock on feet. And just kind of changing that conversation a little bit. And when he's in the bath, wash him with his rubber duck or wash him with a toy. Oh no, soap. We need soap. Where's our soap? Just that kind of thing. So just changing things up a little bit to where we can work on that language. Because those routines especially are the ones I feel like we're like, okay, we got to get through it as fast as we can. We got to get dressed. We got to go. At least that's how it is in my life. Usually we're rushing. So just trying to slow some of those routines down. I think that's all of